So my house, I don't know if this is anything like yours, but my house has a lot of stuff in it that at some point I believed that I needed. Remember when you watched that commercial or you listened to that ad on the radio or you had that pop up on the internet, you thought, this is going to change my life. I'll be a better person if I have this. And then time goes by and it ends up just sitting there. And there's no better example of this in my house or in my life than magazines, right? You find these on the newsstand and you go, this will improve me. This contains information that is vital to my life, and if I just read them cover to cover, then I'll be skinnier, and I'll be smarter, and I'll be richer, and I'll be faster. And all of this stuff is promised on that cover page. Here's the problem I'm concerned with. I don't think I'm getting my money's worth. I don't think I'm getting what I paid for. But here's why. Because of the average magazine that probably has about 50 pages, I read about 10% of the magazine. And I usually start with the cover thing, right? The cover article, because that seems to be the most important part of the magazine. So I usually go right there. I pick the parts that I want to read and then leave the rest for never, and it just always sits there. And the other thing that's difficult about magazines is they've been quarantined to a specific spot in my house. I don't know if you keep magazines in the bathroom, but it's kind of our periodical station at our house. So if it's not sitting there where I can see it, I don't usually read it. So I don't sit down in the living room or at the dining room table or lay down in bed and go, you know what, I'm going to pick up that magazine and read an article or two. Again, it's only if I'm in that one spot that I'll actually engage with it. So I whittle it down to the certain parts that I want, and as long as I'm in that certain place, well then I get something. But I don't think that I get the full experience. Maybe you have other things in your life that are like that, like the warranty that they suckered you into at the store. Remember when they told you this would be a really smart thing to do and it's going to make everything better, and you bought it and you forgot about it. You probably have warranties you don't even know about. You may have a blender on your kitchen counter that you don't even know how to operate, but somebody told you it was going to make everything better. So we have all of these kinds of things, but then for whatever reason, the situation just doesn't work out and we don't use it the way that we thought we would. Now here's why I bring this up, because I'm convinced that in this category with magazines and blenders and warranties is worship. I think worship is this thing that we pick parts of that we like. Just certain parts that we're comfortable with, that make us feel good, that energize us. Parts like singing. If you went out to the mall or to Great America or to your neighborhood or just the other people in the building this morning and you went up to them and said, what is worship? I would venture a guess that 9.5 out of 10 people would say it's when we sing at church. It's the 3 or 4 songs that we sing. And the band's up there and they lead us and we maybe hum along at best, but that's worship. There might be a few that would say, well, worship is when I go to church. So it's the songs and it's the sermon and it's the prayer and it's the coffee and we go and worship, right? That's what worship is. Just this part, this piece. And it's usually relegated to a place, right? Worship happens in a very specific place, like church. So yes, in some ways, church is like our bathroom, and worship is like the magazines that we keep in it. They only happen there, and we're very comfortable with it being there, and we leave it there, and we leave and go about our business and don't worry about it anymore. But I think that's a problem. I think when we take just the parts of it that we like, that we're comfortable with, and we reserve it to the places that we like it in, we are missing out. We're missing out not just on the full, rich experience that I believe worship to be, but we're missing out on what it was actually designed to do. So not just us and what we get out of it, but also how we're going about it. I think we maybe miss the point. Because remember, we have this box of understanding, right? And we've been talking for 7 weeks. We've been in this creed series for 7 weeks. And we've talked a lot about this God that exists way outside of our box of understanding. We don't have vocabulary or definitions for him. Yet, we try and cram him into this box and give some shape to him so that we feel more comfortable. And I think we do the same thing with worship. And it becomes easy to worship the God that's in our box, because then the worship can go in the box too, and it's nice and neat and contained. But what I want to push us to for the next several minutes is this idea. If God is outside the box, then for us to rightly engage with him and worship him, our worship cannot be in the box. It cannot be in the container that we've given it. It can't be relegated to 4 or 5 songs within an hour and 15 minutes on a Sunday morning. You see, because I believe that worship is a way of life, not a part of it. I think that worship is all of us. It's who we're supposed to be, not just this compartment that we open up for a few minutes once a week. That it's supposed to be infused into everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that we think. I think it's the way by which we live and breathe. I know that's huge and intense. And you barely have enough time to do the things on your task list, let alone be worshiping God all of the time. So I want to examine this together really in one sentence this morning from Paul in the book of Romans. Where he talks about worship, but he uses a little bit different word, and the words that he puts around that word, they're really intense. So if you want to turn there, it's Romans chapter 12. You've probably memorized this if you grew up in church. Romans chapter 12. We're going to be in verse 1. But listen, when you get to verse 1, you've got to understand that there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes before that. So chapter 12 means there's been 11 chapters leading up to this, and that's important to keep in mind because there's a very, very intense word right at the beginning of this sentence that leads us to look at that. So 11 chapters, and what Paul's been talking about in those 11 chapters is salvation for everyone, not just for the Jew or the Gentile, for everyone. And then he comes to verse 1 of chapter 12, and he begins with, therefore. We'll come back to that. He says, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. That word, therefore. Someone was sharing with me in between, his dad, who was a pastor, said anytime you see a therefore, you've got to ask the question, what's it there for? And I love that because it's a good rhyme to help us remember. Anytime you see that word, when you're at home and you're reading your Bible by yourself, anytime you come up against the word therefore, you need to look backwards. You need to look at the verses that came before it, the chapters that came before it, the sections that came before it, because what therefore means is, so what? Given what I've just said, for however long I've been saying it, therefore, this needs to happen. This is kind of the application of the message. Every sermon you've ever heard, hopefully, has kind of the primary teaching and then a so what. This is what you do as a result of this thing that you've just heard or learned. And so Paul is getting there with right here in verse 1 of chapter 12. Therefore, given all I've said about salvation, therefore, so what? He says, in view of God's mercy. Now, this is one of those parts that we easily kind of skate by, but what he's asking us to do is, as we listen to what he's about to say, and for the rest of his letter, we need to keep God's mercy in view. We need to be conscious of it, be thinking about it, running what he says through that filter. So it's not just a nice thing that he threw in there. It's the cement that's going to hold everything together as we go forward. God's mercy. So, therefore, now that you understand God's mercy, keep that in mind. Don't forget that. And then he goes on to say, offer your bodies as a sacrifice. And what he means is all of you, not just some of you, not just part of you, but all of you. That's what he's getting at with bodies. It's interesting that he doesn't say, offer your singing. He doesn't say, offer your Sunday morning. He doesn't say, offer your Bible study night, offer your quiet time in the morning. He says, offer your bodies, all of you. In other words, there's no nook or cranny or bit or piece of your life that should not be given over to God. All of it. I'm awestruck at that request or command. What other part of your life asks for all of you? Most of the other parts of our life ask for a little bit of our time, a little bit of our money, and a little bit of our energy. But here God says, I want all of it. Every part of who you are, everything that you do, everything that you say, everything that you think, I want that. All encompassing, not bits and pieces. And he says, I want your bodies as a sacrifice. Now, his original audience grew up with Old Testament thinking where there were sacrifices all of the time. So this wasn't a new concept to them. How they understood it was you would get the best animal that you had or the best grain that you had, and you would bring it to the temple and you would offer it as a means to be forgiven for your sin. It's a forgiveness offering in a lot of ways. And they would die. Those animals would die. Those plants would die. And then they would be reconciled to God. So when his readers hear this idea of sacrifice, they go, okay, that sounds good, but wait a minute, you just said our bodies. So they have horrific images go through their mind of what Paul's asking them to do. Offer your body as a sacrifice. That's an intense thing. It gets back to this all-consuming desire for you from God. But Paul says, offer your body as a living sacrifice, not a dead one. It's the opposite of Old Testament thinking. There's a live animal that's killed. You are actually dead in your sin. Now you've been brought to life, so be a living sacrifice. Again, your life. Not just a part of your week, but all of who you are. The in-betweens, the little stuff that you do, what we might label mundane, he wants as an act of worship. Just 6 chapters ago, Paul wrote this in verse 13, do not offer any part of yourself to sin as an instrument of wickedness, but rather offer yourselves to God as those who have been brought from death to life, and offer every part of yourself to him as an instrument of righteousness. Every part of yourself. That means there's no part of you that cannot be used or should not be used as a means to worship and express the worthiness of God. You see, when I read those words, I go, well, this is a bigger deal. This is a lifestyle, not a label. It's not something that we do for a short period of time and check it off our list and move on to other things. It's the core of who we are. It's really the reason that we're here. If everything is supposed to be about him and how great he is and marvelous he is. This is not a one-time deal. This is an ongoing thing. And then at the very end of this verse that we're looking at in chapter 12, he says, this is your true and proper worship. In other words, your life being worship is the right way to worship. It's the correct way to go about honoring God, loving God, expressing and declaring his worthiness is a lifestyle. That's true worship. Anything else is a shadow of it. Anything else is kind of a half-baked version of it. But true and proper worship is all of who you are, all of the time, all for him. See, worship is a way of life, not just a part of it. There's no compartments. It permeates everything that we do, everything that we think, everything that we say. Now, I don't know that Paul and David ever met this side of eternity. In fact, I can be relatively sure that they didn't meet because of the years in between them. But they would have gotten along very well. because God was impressing on them this same idea of a life of worship, not just a song of worship. But David gets very creative in how he talks about it. Look at Psalm 96. Psalm 96. I want to read 10 verses for you of what David says about worship. He says in verse 1 of chapter 96, Psalm 96, "Sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord all the earth. Sing to the Lord, praise his name, proclaim his salvation day after day. Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among all peoples. For great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. He is to be feared above all gods. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. Splendor and majesty are before him. Strength and glory are in his sanctuary. Ascribe to the Lord, all you families of nations. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. Bring an offering and come into his courts. Worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. Tremble before him, all the earth." I don't see a compartment in what he just said. I see an all-consuming, nonstop way of life. And you go, but wait a minute, man. Verse 1 talked about a song, and you've been saying it's not just a song, and here's David saying, sing to the Lord a new song. So what are we talking about? Well, let's think about what a song is at its core. Because I think David's using a song more as a metaphor than an actual literal song. I think he's talking about your life being a song. Because David would have understood, as we do, that a song is responsive. So worship is kind of a response. I think of it like this. Do we have any country music fans in the room? Whoa, there's a lot of you. I'm not a country music fan myself. Sorry. I'll try. Man, you guys you're passionate. But country music, at least what I've listened to, is responsive. It's a response to life's circumstances. And they go about telling the story of the things that have happened to them. That's why a lot of the songs are about their tractor breaking down and their dog running away and their woman leaving them. Right? So it's a response to those things. I'm going to create a song in response to them. You know it's responsive because some songs are very upbeat. Right? So a barbecue stain on my white t-shirt is awesome in one song because it led to something else, I guess. But in a lot of ways, it's a response to whatever is happening in their lives. And I think God calls us to that kind of life, where our life is a response to him. His goodness, his character, his provision for us, how he has taken incredible care. It's this response when we rightly understand who he is. I had a moment this morning in my office as the thunder rolled in. Were you awake for the thunder this morning? I hate when it rains on Sunday because I'm like, God, they don't need one more reason to not come to church today. So it's raining and it's thundering and lightning, and I'm going, it's going to be me preaching at Kelly this morning. It's just going to be the two of us, but that'll be okay. I get kind of blue, and I'm sitting there, and I start going over my notes for the sermon and all this, and it was weird because God was like, you going to practice what you preach? And in that moment, I recognized the raw power in what I was hearing outside. And the idea that God created that, and that listens to him. And then I thought about my brother who is preaching under a tarp that's held up by sticks in the middle of Haiti. And when a storm like this morning rolls in there, they have a whole new set of problems, unlike any that I have. I'm still sitting in my environmentally controlled office, and someone's going to hand me a mic, and I get to go up there and do my thing. I don't have to worry about actually getting struck by lightning. And in that moment, I began to respond to God's provision for me and our church. And that thunderstorm turned into a worship service for me because I was responding to who God was. And it turned what could have been this yucky, feel sorry for myself moment into my attention being directed to him. That's what a song does. It responds. But a song also expresses. I don't know how much jazz music you've listened to, but it's really confusing because it's a raw expression of the artist. It's sometimes very hard to follow jazz music because it's coming from, as they would say, who they are, from their guts. And I believe that God's called us to such a life that we live it like a jazz song that's from our guts, who we are, rightly responding to who God is, understanding that he's our creator, that he's our father, that he's more than this white-bearded sitting on the throne, watching everything play out, hoping that it's entertaining. So I express not just my gratitude and my thankfulness, but just I am his child. And lastly, I think worship is relative. Now, I don't mean relative in truth, I mean in relation to. Like a love song, right? A love song, your love song instantly brings someone to mind, even if it was the love song from high school. There's a song that when Heidi and I started dating, she declared was our love song. And as soon, the first chord that hits, I think about Heidi. I don't think about the song. I don't even know that I know all the words. But that song is relative. It's in relation to my wife. And I believe that God calls us to live a life of worship that's in relation to him. That all of what we do, all of what we say, all of what we think is in relationship to him. That we don't get to compartmentalize. That all of this is about all of him. Worship is a way of life, not a part of it. Worship is this way of life, not a part of it. So what you and I have to do is get worship up out of the box. Again, this is what we've done. We've gone, I like the singing part, and I like it when it's in church, so I will take it and cram it into my box of understanding because then I am comfortable there. But again, I come back to this idea that if God, like we've talked about him, is way out here, bigger than our definitions and our vocabulary, then to rightly engage him and rightly behold him and rightly understand him, we can't leave our worship in here. We can't allow it to be 4 songs, a sermon, a prayer, and we're done. It has to be more of that, by definition, which will make us insanely uncomfortable because it's not inside our box. We can't leave it there. I think that that's the call of what we've been reading from Romans and from the Psalms and so on and so forth, is that right worship, true and proper worship, is more than a song. It's a response. It's an expression. It's a relationship. It's all-consuming every part of who you are. It does not fit inside your box of understanding. It just doesn't. So not only is it broader and spanning more parts of our lives than we maybe sometimes acknowledge, but it's also deeper than that. Jesus really nails this in Matthew. When you look at these words from Matthew, you're going to go, really, did you have to say it that way, Jesus? But this is what he says in Matthew chapter 15. He says, these people, being the religious people of the day, honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules. You see, Jesus goes, real worship, effective worship is not lip service. It's not singing along to the song. You see, we get very consumed with logistics when it comes to worship. Orders of service, coming and sitting down on time, participating, going home, and getting to whatever is afterwards. But there's this cardiac aspect to worship. And Jesus says, I want your heart. Every part of who you are. right? When we say we gave it all our hearts, we mean we put everything into it. When we say someone has captured our heart, we mean that they have all of us. There's no part of us. We're just totally captivated by them. And what Jesus says is real worship, worship that is not in vain, means your heart is close to me, which means it spills out from Sunday. Sunday is the start of worship, not the end. Because I want your heart. I want all of you. I want your life to be this expression of who I am. So worship is a way of life, not a part of it. It's not the compartment that you pop open on Sunday from 10:45 to noon, or 12:03 if we go over. Right? Like, that's sometimes how we think of it. We go to worship, we sing songs of worship, and then we're done. But the Bible says, no, worship is this life. Like an artist expresses themselves. Your life is supposed to be an expression of who God is and how great He is. Where people look at you and go, He must be something. It's not just an expression, it's a declaration. Now, I don't want you to get in your mind that I want you to go into the break room and get the milk carton and stand on it and a megaphone and shout at everybody and tell them how wretched they are. I think you should go get the milk cart and stand in the middle of the room with a megaphone and tell them how great God is. Declare His glory. Declare His mercy. Because that's what Paul said. In view of God's mercy, in understanding the whole of salvation that He gives us, this is how you respond. You worship Him with everything that you do. You declare that to the world. You don't leave any part out. It's all of who you are. And in that, you might find connection with Him. And even more than that, you might find connection with other people that then God allows you to be a part of them getting connected with God. When we're singing with our lives versus singing with our lips, it changes things. You know how a simple song can change your mood, right? When you're driving in the car, it's been a long day at work, and that song comes on the radio that just pumps you up and makes you feel big and strong, and you roll the windows down and you shout that song at the top of your lungs, and you don't care who else is driving next to you, right? Because there's something that has welled up inside of you. And I think that's what we're supposed to be to this world. We're supposed to be the song that wells something up inside of them, that reminds them of something greater than this pit we call earth. Because worship is a way of life, not a part of it. It's all of who we are, even when we're in the cubicle, even when we're in the break room, even when we're in the classroom, even when we're mowing the lawn or disciplining our child or cooking dinner for our family or whatever the case may be. Each of those is this opportunity for us to worship God in it. Even the small things. I'll give you an example. Last night, I was putting my children to bed, and our youngest still wears a pull-up. Otherwise, we have a puddle. So he wears a pull-up still. He's 3, and he's just still figuring out what that looks like. And I hate putting that pull-up on him because he won't stand still, and he's goofing off with his brothers, and it's just a big pain in the neck. And I'm done. I'm spent. I just want to go watch TV with Heidi, and I got to get these kids in bed, and he's doing a dance while we're trying to get this on him. But last night as I was doing that, I thought, this is an opportunity for me to worship God. So no, I didn't start singing Amazing Grace. I decided that I would declare and express who my heavenly Father is to my son by the way I fathered him. I worshiped God by putting a pull-up on a 3-year-old. And I think you can worship God by enjoying His creation when you mow your lawn. I think you can worship God by appreciating the person that sits next to you at work because they have a little God in them. They're made in the image of God too. And you can worship him by being kind and gentle and forgiving and all of those things to them. You can worship him in that. So you may be the world's worst singer. Doesn't matter. You can still worship all day, every day. Now, if you're anything like me, you feel good about this. You're like, yes, I want that to be true of me, and I'm going to go do what I got to do the rest of the day and forget all about it. So we have made it our job to fill your pockets with stuff. I know you've got candy canes and Legos and carrots. I hope you don't have a carrot anymore. But you've got all kinds of things in your pockets. We're going to give you one more today. It's simple. It's a guitar pick. And on that guitar pick, it says Life Song. And here's why we're giving that to you. Is our hope is that you'll put it somewhere you'll see it all the time, or you'll keep it in your pocket where you'll stick your hand in there and feel it all the time. And it will remind you that right now, where you're at with who you're with, you can worship God. Because we don't talk about worship in terms of a song, we talk about worship in terms of a life. And so you can sing the glories of God to the room by just being the Christian that we're called to be. That your life is this expression of who God is. That your life is this declaration of his mercy. That you keep that in view as you go about your every single day. That your life becomes this song. And I think the more that we do that, some things start to change. I think mundane activities, when they become acts of worship, are filled with more joy. There are two guys that are here almost every single day at Emmanuel, working. In fact, they work harder than probably any staff member, and they don't make a penny. And I'd tell you their name and have them stand so you could clap for them, but they would never come again if I did that. And I try every week to find them somewhere in the building and tell them how much I appreciate what they do for us. And every time they give me the best line in the world. They look me square in the eyeball and say, "We don't do it for you." I love it. Isn't that great? They say, "We do it for him." And so every brush stroke and every nail that gets pounded in and every piece of furniture that gets moved, they are worshiping God. I don't think they could carry a tune in a bucket. But they spend a good 40 hours a week in worship, doing things for him. And you know what would be incredible if we started doing that, all of us being worship, we might start doing things better. We might become a better parent. We might become a better worker. We might become a better principal, whatever it is that we are. Because now we're doing it for him, not for us or someone else. Because this is our act of worship. My body is a living sacrifice, all of who I am, all of the time. And we go, you know what? Worship is not going to be just one article that I pick up on Sundays between this time and this time. It's going to be the whole magazine. It's going to be all of who I am, all of what I'm about, because I believe in a God that is way outside my box, way outside my ability to understand. So every day I will take a leap and express my love and affection for him by what I do and what I say and what I think. Let's pray. Father, as we study your word and we learn a little bit more about what you consider to be true and proper worship, we recognize that we fall short. I fall short. Like these guys that show up here every week, they run circles around me, Lord, when it comes to worshiping you. I speak for my friends in this room. We want our lives to be different kind of lives. Ones that in every moment are declaring your glory. And in every moment are keeping your mercy in view. Lord, you've brought us from death to life. We're your trophies. We're your masterpiece. Help us to live up to that label. And in our declaration and in our expression, others would come to know you. Lord, our prayer, like in the words of the song we are about to hear, is that you would make our life song sing.